How many times have you said yes when you really wanted to say no? How many times have you taken on more than you could handle just because you didn't want to disappoint someone? We live in a world that celebrates being busy, saying yes to everything, and trying to please everyone. But what if I told you that your inability to say no is the biggest obstacle between you and your dreams? This story will show you why the most successful people in the world have mastered one simple word that could transform your entire life. In the heart of Silicon Valley lived a brilliant software engineer named Amanda. She worked at one of the top tech companies and was known for being the person who never said no. Need someone to work overtime? Call Amanda. Need someone to take on an extra project? Amanda's your girl. Need someone to cover a weekend shift? Amanda was always available. At 28, Amanda was exhausted. She worked 70-hour weeks, managed 5 different projects, and somehow found time to help her coworkers with their problems too. Her manager, Jessica, loved her because she was so reliable and accommodating. "Amanda, you're our superstar," Jessica would say. "I don't know what this team would do without you." But Amanda wasn't happy. Despite working harder than everyone else, she wasn't getting promoted. Despite being the most helpful person in the office, she wasn't being recognized. Despite saying yes to everything, she felt like she was falling behind while others moved ahead in their careers. Amanda's personal life was suffering too. She had no time for hobbies, her relationships were strained, and she couldn't remember the last time she had read a book or watched a movie just for pleasure. Her best friend Sarah constantly complained that Amanda was always too busy to hang out. "Amanda, when was the last time we actually spent time together?" Sarah asked during one of their rare phone calls. "You're always working on something for someone else. What about you? What about your own goals?" Amanda felt frustrated because she knew Sarah was right, but she didn't know how to change. Saying no felt selfish and rude. What if people stopped liking her? What if they thought she wasn't a team player? One evening, Amanda was working late again, covering for a coworker who had called in sick, when she overheard a conversation between Jessica and another manager, Michael, in the conference room. "We need someone to lead the new AI project," Michael was saying. "It's a huge opportunity, a real career maker." "What about Amanda?" Jessica replied. "She's incredibly talented and hardworking." Amanda's heart jumped. This was the kind of project she had been dreaming about. But then Michael said something that crushed her. "Amanda? I don't think so. She's great at handling the day-to-day stuff, but she's spread too thin. She's involved in everything but doesn't seem to focus on anything important. We need someone who can prioritize and say no to distractions." "What about David from the other team?" Amanda felt like she had been punched in the stomach. David had been at the company for less time than her, worked fewer hours, and definitely wasn't as helpful to others. But apparently, that didn't matter. That weekend, Amanda decided to visit her grandfather, Robert, who lived in a retirement community in nearby San Jose. Robert was 82 years old and had been a successful business owner before retiring. Amanda had always admired his calm wisdom and hoped he might have some advice. "Grandpa, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong," Amanda said as they sat in his small apartment garden. "I work harder than anyone else. I help everyone. I never say no to requests, but somehow I'm not getting ahead in my career." Robert looked at his granddaughter with compassionate eyes. "Amanda, let me tell you a story about a king I once heard about." Amanda settled in to listen, grateful for her grandfather's attention. This king ruled a prosperous kingdom, but he had one problem. He couldn't say no to anyone. When his generals asked for more soldiers, he said yes. When his advisors asked for more money for their projects, he said yes. When neighboring kingdoms asked for help with their problems, he said yes. When citizens came to him with requests, he always said yes. "That sounds like a good king," Amanda said. "At first it seemed that way," Robert continued. "The king was popular. Everyone liked him because he was so generous and accommodating. But slowly, problems began to appear. Robert paused to water a small tomato plant. The kingdom's treasury became empty because the king had said yes to too many expensive projects. The army became weak because soldiers were spread too thin helping other kingdoms. The kingdom's own important projects were never completed because resources were always being diverted to help with less important requests. Amanda was beginning to see where this was going. One day, a serious threat appeared. A powerful enemy kingdom decided to attack. But when the king tried to defend his own kingdom, he discovered that his army was scattered across the world helping others. His treasury was empty, and his advisors were too busy with unimportant projects to help him develop a defense strategy. "What happened?" Amanda asked. The king realized he had been so busy saying yes to everyone else's priorities that he had completely neglected his own. In trying to please everyone, he had failed the people who mattered most, his own kingdom. Robert sat down next to Amanda. The king learned that leadership isn't about saying yes to everything. It's about saying yes to the right things and no to everything else. A good leader protects their resources, their time, energy, and focus, so they can use them for what matters most. Amanda felt a light bulb go on in her mind. "You're saying I need to learn to say no." "I'm saying you need to learn that saying no to some things is how you say yes to the things that really matter," Robert replied. "Every yes you give to something unimportant is a no you're giving to something important." That Monday, Amanda made a decision that felt terrifying and liberating at the same time. When a co-worker asked her to take on an extra task that wasn't related to her main responsibilities, she politely said, "I'm sorry, but I need to focus on my primary projects right now." The co-worker looked surprised, but nothing terrible happened. The world didn't end. People didn't hate her. Over the next few weeks, Amanda began saying no more strategically. She said no to working late on projects that weren't her responsibility. She said no to meetings that didn't directly involve her work. She said no to social obligations that drained her energy without adding value to her life. Instead, she said yes to things that mattered. She said yes to spending extra time on her most important project. She said yes to taking an online course that would advance her skills. She said yes to having dinner with Sarah. She said yes to reading books that would help her career. The results were almost immediate. With fewer distractions, Amanda's work quality improved dramatically. She completed her primary project ahead of schedule and received praise from senior management. She had more energy and felt more focused than she had in years. 3 months later, when another major project opportunity came up, Amanda's name was at the top of the list. Her manager, Jessica, told her, "Amanda, I've noticed a real change in you lately. You seem more focused, more strategic. That's exactly what we need for this leadership role." Amanda got the promotion she had been wanting, not because she said yes to everything, but because she learned to say no to the right things. The truth is, successful people aren't successful because they do more than everyone else. They're successful because they do the right things and say no to everything else. Your time and energy are limited resources. Every minute you spend on something unimportant is a minute you can't spend on something that could change your life. Saying no isn't selfish, it's strategic. It's not about being mean, it's about being focused. When you say no to other people's priorities, you create space to say yes to your own. Look at your own life. What are you saying yes to that you should be saying no to? What opportunities are you missing because you're too busy with things that don't really matter? Remember, you can't have everything, but you can have anything if you're willing to say no to everything else. If this story inspired you to start using the power of no in your own life, give it a like and share what you want to say no to in the comments. Your success is waiting on the other side of that 2-letter word.